Hello, Ivy here. This week's podcast is entitled Doughnut Economics, episode 143. An introduction. Our world is broken in places, and in a growing number of regions, the cracks are beginning to show. Generally, these places have leaders which have a growing disconnect with its people. History has shown that nations can come back from such a huge chasm in its economy and in its people. How, I wonder, did those nations move on from their respective difficult and often perilous environments? How did they move on from broken societies with no connection between each faction and the leaders of the day continuing on their path with impunity? Can history over centuries tell us anything, and can they help with current broken societies? I thought it would be interesting to use a few examples to bring these scenarios to a place of understanding of what was going on in those various societies, and to explore what each of them did to move out of that difficult space, for each country to rebuild and feel that their voices were heard for the first time in a long time, and in some cases it was many years of waiting to enter spaces with hope. Based on some of the discussions we have had on this podcast, I have included two countries that we have discussed, pointing out the disconnect between those from societal tier 1 and the rest of the population. Two that have documented well in history, and others which are on the brink of imposing leadership on its population. You will not be surprised to hear that the UK and its monarchy and friends and associates in society tier 1 are in the group to be discussed. But there are others that you may not have considered. The USA and the impact of the election process, and what awaits the USA and the ripple impact on the rest of the world towards the end of January 2025. Germany and its experience of Hitler and the regime that was in place, and how it moved on from that environment. France and the last monarchy to exist in that country, and how they as a nation moved on from that leadership model. The most recent one, which is teetering on its last legs whilst trying to impose something on its people. One attempt was to introduce martial law, but within a few hours that instruction was withdrawn. South Korea is in a precarious position, as are the people of that country. We will look at the approach used when analysing information about the sample countries, briefly give my thoughts that I have held for some time, as I stand back and look at the world around me, and try to do my usual and extract patterns and themes and learning points wherever possible. Point 1. In terms of France, I will outline a brief summary of the conduct and impact of the King and Queen of France at the time, King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, and the main events which caused the changes and moving forward without a monarchy. That is, post-revolution. Point 2. In Germany's example, we will look at post-World War II and how the country developed a post-Hitler nation with its divide of East and West and the rebuilding of Germany. We will explore what, if any, lessons there are for the USA. Thinking here about inclusion and participation and adapting any successful strategies. Point 4. My thoughts on how the UK can and also should move on from its current state. Point 5. It's all about conclusions of all of the above. And point 6 is really where we would have had our reference sources in the past. And as I said last week, from now on it will be about useful publications linked with the topic that the podcast covers. So for this one, useful books on this topic of collective participation from all societal levels. And there are 3 books, 2 research papers, 2 economic publications on this topic, one of which led to the title of this podcast. I was spoiled for choice, but in the end, I opted for Doughnut Economics. The actual title of the book is Doughnut Economics: 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist, written by Kate Raworth. This book challenges traditional economic thinking and proposes a framework for sustainable development that involves, and then I've put in bold, collective participation from all societal levels. Let's have a look at how we're going to approach this. My approach to trying to make sense of all of this was to look for the main events and strategies that took place following some kind of movement in emotions of what was happening at the top tier, and how the remaining groups of inhabitants of each country survived, and whether or not they voiced their concerns about the path that their respective countries were embarking on. My background in my professional life, retired now, centred on policy and strategy. In those roles, I always stood back from the day-to-day drama and looked for themes and patterns of behaviour, and then broken them down into finer details of commonality, even when the ties were loose, but the general pattern existed. I used that approach to analyse the situation now, with the countries I mentioned earlier, and in particular to give some thought to the UK and USA and their current direction of travel. Neither one is an advert of good practice, and added to that, both the UK and the USA have some dangerous groups who are active and their numbers are growing. Many others are following those groups and individuals without question, and on the face of it, all may look very bleak indeed. However, remember 2 other examples of countries where control was centred on a group of people who did not care about the opinions of the wider population and had an inability to read a room. The UK is definitely one of those in that scenario right now. However, the 2 countries I am referring to are from historical events, and they are France and Germany. How did they overcome such turmoil and turn things around, where economically both are thriving centuries later, though France right now is in a perilous position again, where the Prime Minister has lost a confidence vote and the President is hanging on by a thread. Maybe the pattern and the trends I mentioned earlier are about to start again for France. Does that indicate that patterns and trends emerge in every situation like this? And at some point, is there something that occurs that ultimately leads to a new start of some kind? After reading a few articles and searching for books and articles on this subject, the books and articles themselves produced patterns and themes. It all was becoming very, very interesting. Let's have a quick look at France. There's more information about all of these country and the summaries, the bullet points I'm going to go through in a moment. But also, they are contained in previous podcasts, particularly France. That was the most recent one, which has probably been about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. So, let's have a look at France. France post-revolution, the main events and strategies employed. Following the executions of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette in 1793, France abolished the monarchy and established a republic. The Reign of Terror was a radical phase where revolutionary leaders like Robespierre enforced political conformity, often through violence. The establishment of the Directory in 1795 attempted to stabilise France by moderating the revolutionary government. Finally, Napoleon Bonaparte's coup in 1799 marked the transition from revolutionary chaos to the establishment of the consulate and eventually the Napoleonic Empire in 1804. Moving forward without a monarchy. The French Civil Code, known as the Napoleonic Code, established legal equality and laid the foundations for modern civil law. The focus on secularism and removal of feudal privileges helped to unify different social tiers around common republican ideals. France fostered nationalism, and the reforms in education, infrastructure, and the military became key pillars of strength. Germany. Germany post-World War II and its main events and strategies. Post-Hitler Germany was divided into East and West, each influenced by Soviet and Allied powers respectively. The Marshall Plan, funded by the United States, was instrumental in rebuilding the West German economy with strong industrial and economic policy support. The creation of a democratic government and alignment with Western Europe were critical in West Germany's integration into the global community. East Germany, under Soviet influence, experienced a more isolated and state-controlled economy. Rebuilding Germany. The economic miracle transformed West Germany into a leading economic power. Commitment to democracy, social market economy, and reconciliation with neighbouring countries facilitated sustained growth. Education and innovation became cornerstones of German advancement. Lessons for the USA and the UK. Inclusion and participation. Like in historical France and Germany, social change requires broad participation across societal sectors. Disengagement can lead to polarisation and stagnation. Encouraging active political participation and civic engagement can strengthen democracy and promote collective problem solving. Adapting successful strategies. Reforming economic structures, investing in education, and embracing diversity could bolster national strength. Political and economic reforms should aim for inclusivity to harness the talents and perspectives of all citizens. Let's have a look at the approach of how this could be done. In the annals of history, various nations have overcome the shackles of authoritarian rule through the unity and collective effort of their diverse citizenry. Like the metaphorical donut, individuals from all walks of life have gathered in a circle of shared understanding and mutual goals, casting aside their differences to forge a path towards democracy and prosperity. This unity serves as a template, demonstrating the power of collective participation in rebuilding a nation stronger than before. No nation requires its citizens to agree on every detail. Instead, the focus must be on working together to identify the central themes and shared objectives that can guide strategic planning. When people collaborate across societal tiers, the nation rises as one, fostering resilience and strength. Reflecting on the recent USA election, people of colour, long regarded as the nation's frontline defenders of progress, are re-evaluating their roles. They are prioritising mental health and uplifting each other, acknowledging that while voices were raised for change, the nation was not prepared for a female president, let alone a black female president. The message is clear. People of colour are not opting out. They are recalibrating their involvement to ensure that their participation is part of a broader collective from all societal tiers. New strategies will emerge rooted in identified common themes. The era of bearing disproportionate burdens for change has ended. A model of unity must prevail, where diverse factions demonstrate genuine intent and unity of purpose. Only then will people of colour fully engage, contributing to a powerful and unified force for change, one that, when realised, will stand as one of the most formidable collectives in American history. This paradigm reflects the principles of Doughnut Economics, where collective participation drives recognising patterns, setting goals, and building consensus on forward-moving strategies. It is a beacon of hope, illustrating how nations can thrive through shared endeavour, creating societies that are fairer, more equitable, and ultimately stronger together. Conclusion. Transformation after regime changes in both France and Germany required a blend of strategic governance, social reforms, and active public participation. These lessons emphasize the importance of unity, inclusivity, and strategic reforms to navigate complex societal transitions. Any nation can benefit from these historical precedents by fostering broad civic engagement and embracing inclusive policies to address current challenge. Unless different groups and tiers of society come together, things won't change. Everyone in those groups needs to understand and have similar goals for success. Without it, no one faction is strong, and this leads to increasing nations bordering on dangerous times ahead for its people. Successful and sustainable change often requires the collective effort of diverse groups and social tiers working towards common goals. When societies embrace inclusivity and cooperation, they can navigate challenges more effectively and create a more stable and prosperous future for all citizens. And to bring this podcast, this last section I added at the last moment, but I think it will be useful because we have spent many months talking about different tiers of society, mainly in the UK, but we have referred to some in the USA in the past. And I think it would be a useful reminder of what each country, particularly the UK and USA, as I've said before, what they refer to as the people that fit into each tier. And if nothing else, it's a useful reference point for you moving on from today, that when we refer to top tier being aristocracy and so on, if you have this as a benchmark, you can look at it and refer to it and know, in terms of which country you are linking it to, what each of those tiers actually consists of. So, start off with the United Kingdom. Upper class. This traditionally includes the aristocracy and peerage, with titles such as dukes and earls, as well as those with significant inherited wealth. It also encompasses high-ranking professionals and business owners, as well as members of the royal family. Middle class. Often split into upper and lower middle classes. The upper middle class might include professionals such as doctors, lawyers and managers, whereas the lower middle class might include teachers and lower-level government employees. Working class typically includes skilled and unskilled manual labourers. There has historically been a distinction between skilled workers, sometimes referred to as the working middle class, and unskilled workers. Lower class. This can include the unemployed and those in poverty. Individuals in this class often face the greatest barrier to upward mobility. United States of America. Upper class includes extremely wealthy individuals and influential figures, often with considerable assets in business and real estate. The upper class can include old money, wealth passed down through generations, as well as new money, recent self-made wealth. Upper middle class, comprising professionals with advanced degrees and significant incomes, such as doctors, lawyers and executives. Education is a key factor in belonging to this group. Middle class, often characterised by a comfortable standard of living, job stability and home ownership. This class is noted for its diversity in occupation, including both white-collar and skilled blue-collar jobs. Working class consists mainly of labourers and service industry workers. This class often faces economic instability and lower educational attainment. Lower class includes those with lower incomes and individuals depending on government assistance. This group often faces significant economic hardships and may include the unemployed and underemployed. In both countries, there is ongoing debate about social mobility and the extent to which individuals can realistically move between these classes. Factors such as education, economic opportunity, and cultural capital play significant roles in determining one's class status, and systemic barriers can make upward mobility challenging. Social class impacts many aspects of life, including political influence, social networks, and access to resources. One of the central themes running through this podcast and the reference materials that I've referred to, and there are many, many more, that's just in a few examples. It's about people from every tier in society coming together, identifying common themes. They're not going to agree on everything, but it's a coming together, a meeting of minds on common themes and developing common strategies that they are willing to employ, to follow, and only then will they become a force to be reckoned with. It's no good one or two or a handful from certain tiers and lots from another tier, because together you're still not going to overpower, win, succeed against top tier with all of those affluent, powerful people and groups in it. So it's about collective coming together from different walks of life, discussing between all of those those groups and individuals, arriving at common ground. Once you've got the common ground, accept there are certain things you're not going to agree on, but agree on a set of things that are going to give you power and strength to move forward. Once you've done that, you then develop strategies that are common to all groups, where all groups, all tiers, will see benefit in some way for their particular tier. Once you've done that, that's where the power lies. And all those countries that did have monarchies and don't have them now, things changed through being voted out or revolution. There were enough people that created power and strength, and because they'd all agreed on the common themes, common grounds of what they were going to do, what they were trying to achieve, this is what has led to not just one theme, there are obviously several, but the ones that they'd all agreed on. This is what led to success. And maybe there is a pattern in there somewhere. When countries become strong, things change in some cases and they're not so strong and things are difficult, and certain leaders come in and want to take over and impose all kinds of laws and regulations. But if you stand back and go back over centuries and look at where countries have had their ups and downs, so to speak, for want of a better phrase, you will start to see patterns, themes emerging, and strategies that come from that. And those countries that were struggling are now moving out of that phase. They could well go back, just like how France is about to be going through some things at the moment. after, a few centuries of doing quite well. And it may still continue to do well, but at the moment it's up in the air as to what's going to happen with France. But I stand back from all of that and say there will be good and bad times for most countries, if not all. And not to despair, even when things look desolate. Look for common ground. And from that, strength emerges. So that's it from me for this week. As per usual, look forward to your comments. So it's bye from me. Bye from Ivy. Bye.
No voy a negarte, no. La primera vez que tú me la hiciste, baby, quería matarme, yeah. Pero ahora no. El problema fue amarte, yeah. Sabiendo que no sientes nada y no sabes querer. No sabes querer. Esta es mi despedida. Vete con el que tú un día. Suerte que ya no eres mía, yo ya no te aguanto, no. Esta es mi despedida. Vete con el que tú un día. Suerte que ya no eres mía, yo ya no te aguanto, no. Lo peor es que te hagan creer que es de verdad, pero no lo es. Antes lo dudaba, ahora no. Y dice que quieres mi mano. Lo peor es ver que te hice más fuerte de lo que quise. Solo hay nubes grises. Yeah. Tranqui que eso se me pasa. Que yo ando chilling en casa. Que lo que quiero te pasa. Más de nivel. Esta es mi despedida. Vete con el que tú un día. Suerte que ya no eres mía, yo ya no te aguanto, no. Esta es mi despedida. Vete con el que tú un día. Suerte que ya no eres mía, yo ya no te aguanto, no. Lo siento. Vas a pagar por todo lo que has hecho y con intereses pa' que sientas lo que siento. Ya sabemos tu corazón estrecho, que es que no lo cabe ni siquiera un sentimiento. Un sentimiento y ella se cree la crema porque está tan bella. Como una estrella se estrella cuando la dejan de querer. Tranqui que eso se me pasa. Que yo ando chilling en casa. Que lo que quiero te pasa. Más de nivel. Esta es mi despedida. Vete con el que tú un día. Suerte que ya no eres mía, yo ya no te aguanto, no. Esta es mi despedida. Vete con el que tú un día. Suerte que ya no eres mía, yo ya no te aguanto, no. No voy a negarte, no. La primera vez que tú me la hiciste, baby, quería matarme, yeah. Pero ahora no. El problema fue amarte.